You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Johannes Ekström of Avatar. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hey, what's up, guys? I just wanted to take a couple seconds here and let you know, if you didn't already know, about the t-shirt pre-sale that's going on right now. I've had a lot of people asking me over the last couple months if I was going to do any merch, and the answer is yes, we are doing it now. And trust me, guys, this thing is cool. It's almost like 85% guaranteed to improve your tone and plus make you more attractive to whoever it is you're trying to attract. Groupies, bartenders, squirrels, really everyone. It's just going to make you better looking. They're going to be printed right here in Portland, Oregon, in the same shop that does some screening for some of mine and your favorite stomp boxes. So there's that connection. How could that be bad? And everybody that pre-orders will get 15% off what the normal price will be going forward, as a little thank you for helping us get this thing kickstarted. And there's a lot more cool designs in the pipeline, and yeah, we're going to be looking forward to keeping those in stock and ready to rock for anybody who is needing some fresh threads in their life. So just head on over to tonemob.com/store. It'll take you where you need to go. You'll see the shirt, and all will be right with the world. So yeah, thanks for checking that out, and on with the show. Hello everyone on the internet. Welcome to the latest edition of the ToneMob.com podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. As per usual, I'm your host Blake Weiland, and today we are talking to Paul Rhoney of Rhoney Guitars and the Luthierist podcast. How's it going?
It's going okay. How about yourself?
It's been quite an interesting day, but I'm starting to manage. I'm
Good.
I'm gonna have my hands on a guitar in a little while, and everything will be okay.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
What kind of guitar?
Probably tonight. I'm feeling like it's a junior night. I think it'll be my my old junior tonight, I believe.
Yeah, most nights are junior nights, I think.
Yeah, it's always a good choice, I think.
Yeah.
So, how was your day? What did you have going on?
It's busy as usual. My mom was in town for a couple of days and with my niece, and so we visited for a little while, which was really great, and then came into work this morning and just back to sort of the grind of what I do.
Literally, sometimes grind.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Or grind, file, sand. Scrape, yeah. There's a lot of adjectives that describe the various parts of, what is essentially just whittling away at wood, and then putting some kind of a coating on it so that it doesn't deteriorate into nothingness.
Oh, but what a piece of wood it is when it's all done. I mean, really.
Yeah, there's that. There's that. It's nice. I like what I do, and definitely people always ask me like, what's the best part of the process? It's like, when you're done and you get to play the thing, that's definitely the best part of the process.
No, breathing in sawdust and inhaling various chemical fumes. That's my favorite part of the process. Yes.
Oh man, like tell me about it. Today's one. Okay, I've always been like an allergy sufferer, like my whole life, and generally, Benadryl takes care of me, so like it's not terrible, but I still I have allergies, and so during certain times of the season, it's like I'm sneezing constantly, and there's just liquids coming out of my face that shouldn't be, And today was kind of one of those days. And then on top of that is the sawdust and fumes from super glue and various urethanes and don't get me started.
Well, man, that I didn't really think about that part of it as far as having allergies on top of just the nastiness that kind of comes along with the territory, so to speak. That's
Yeah,
intense.
it's kind of a double whammy,
Oh man.
It's pretty bad, I'll take Nick Offerman's advice and keep a hanky in my pocket. It's kind of the best thing I can do.
Yeah.
And luckily Benadryl doesn't make me drowsy like it does so many people, so at least I can, take that and kind of feel mostly normal.
Yeah, yeah, drowsiness and a table saw is generally a bad combination, so.
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely. Yeah, table saws are kind of bad ideas in general.
It's a brilliant invention as long as everything goes smooth.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. I'm just terrified of them.
Oh, wow! I'm glad I'm not the only one. I mean,
You shouldn't be. They're horrifying.
they are. There's so many horror stories, and just looking at it, it looks like a machine of death spinning. Just it looks like some sort of torture device a Bond villain would use. I don't know. They frighten me.
That's not entirely inaccurate. I think wasn't that one of like the Bond villain? That's like the sort of the famous trope of like the Bond franchise is the villain is like, and now, Mr. Bond, I'm going to tell you my plan and then cut you in two, and then Bond is like on a table slowly being pushed into a saw.
Yeah.
That's gonna like tear up his junk, and you're like, ah.
Yeah, the one I remember most is I don't remember. I'm sure I'll lose all my Bond fan listeners right now because I don't know which one this is, but the one with the laser beam, going up to his crotch. That's one.
Right.
Yeah.
The laser beam.
Uh-huh.
Okay, see, why don't we have that laser to cut wood with?
Well, maybe
there are lasers.
I don't know. Maybe somebody like Gibson or Fender might be able to afford that.
Maybe they've got the Plek machine and the CNC bandsaw. Maybe the next thing is like the laser cutter that can cut out the entire guitar.
That'd be gnarly. Whoa.
Wow.
Maybe we need to invent that.
And the edges would be all burnt.
Well, maybe there's a reason this isn't a thing.
Yeah. Probably. That's very, yeah. Burn marks are hard to sand out.
It'd be okay on like a really dark bourbon burst or something. I don't think anybody'd notice. You'd be all right.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know? Well, that's why Fender did the Antigua finish?
Yes.
That Fender, that sort of green, like, that like puke yellow to puke green burst that Fender did in the 70s. Like, one of the reasons they did that finish was because when they were doing the binding channel and routing it or something. Anyway, they kept burning it. And so they were like, we got to cover up this burn. And they came up with Antigua to cover it up.
Really? Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It is kind of an odd color, but I do actually kind of like it. If I'm the only one.
Oh, yeah, it's cool. It looks really great on some stuff. All colors can look good on some things, but not all colors can look good on everything.
That's true.
That's my take on it, I think.
That makes sense. Yeah, I almost picked up a Coronado one time that was in Antigua, and I'm still kicking myself for not buying that thing because it was like 2 years ago, and it was literally $800 for it.
Oh man.
Yeah, and I was like, I didn't really know what it was at the time. I was like, I've never really seen this before. It's cool. It sounds good. I'll pass. And then like a couple years later, I was like, that Coronado was really cool. I'm gonna look into it and read more about these, and then. Oh, that's a $2,000 plus guitar. What was I? Oh,
yeah.
Good job.
Well done. Missed out on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is a pretty good deal on that. Jeez.
Yeah, and it was all original as far as I could tell. Not that I'm an expert, but it didn't look like it had been messed with at all. But anyway, that's no one wants to hear that. They don't need to hear me complaining about not buying things.
That could be like a whole podcast though of just like various people talking about the really great deal that they passed.
Oh yeah, the one that got away.
Yeah, the one that got away.
Yeah.
Every guitar player has those stories, I think. At least if you're into gear, some guitar players just could not care less.
I know
about
and I don't understand
what they play.
But
I don't either. I don't
It's
get it.
oh, it's so crazy. That just is like, of course, I'm not going to offend any of those people because they're not listening to this podcast. But I do not. I can't possibly fathom that. I'm such a gearhead, but whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I keep rambling. What I really want to know, and what I always try to dig into with everybody, is like kind of what's your musical backstory? How did you get where you are now, and kind of where did it all start for you?
Hmm. Okay. Well, yeah. I've listened to your podcast a couple times. I kind of knew this was coming, and so I kind of like thought about it a little bit. And it's I still don't know if I have the story straight, but I'll try.
Okay.
Um, so my dad was a drummer, and my mom was just always really super into music. Like I was raised on the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and Van Halen and like Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and the classical music like Beethoven and Tchaikovsky. Was that's like the sort of the basis, the formation of my just being a kid and having music just all the time. Like my parents had this huge Pioneer stereo system that just they always had a record on. From my recollection of it, there was always some music playing and playing loudly. Because my parents were rock and rollers. That's their generation. Um, so I was just like obsessed with music from a really early age, and then it was kind of like getting to sort of like discover new music for myself at a certain point, where I realized like that MTV was a thing, and that I could go out and I could talk to people and say, "What do you listen to?" And they would tell me like that, they listen to different things, and I could just get into it, and discover my own stuff. And so that sort of process of discovery uh, just never stopped. It never went away. It uh, never wasn't a thing. It was just this huge music is. If music wasn't around, I wouldn't do what I do. Like music is just the huge biggest influence of my life. And I think probably a lot of those early bands that I was familiar with, like the Beatles and Led Zeppelin, and then classical music, kind of shaped what I'm into now. Because I think that what I listen to now, primarily, like I listen to a lot of stuff, but I think primarily what I listen to now is probably, um, you know, could probably be directly connected to that if you go back. But then right around like high school was kind of when I decided that playing music might be something that I wanted to do. And like I said, my dad was a drummer, and um, so I met these kids, and they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna start a band. We're starting a band." And I was like, "Oh, sweet! I'll play drums. Yeah, I know how to play drums." And I had no idea how to play drums, like no clue at all. But I thought, well, my dad could teach me, and he kind of did. Like that's kind of how it worked out. They were like, "Paul's gonna be the drummer," and they got behind the drum kit, and they're like, "You don't really know what you're doing." I'm like, "No," and then uh, but my dad was there, and he was kind of creating a studio, like him and his buddies who were bandmates were trying to sort of create this recording studio. And uh, he was a carpenter and was could kind of frame the whole thing out, and uh, create this thing. And then my friends and I would go in there with our instruments, and we would learn to play our instruments and try to write songs together. And so that was like my early experience. And I continued to just be a drummer for years, and I still now, like even to this day, um, like I'm a far better drummer than I am guitar player. Like I'm probably as a musician, I'm I'm more of a drummer than I am a guitar player. But there was a point at which I realized that you could take a guitar, and you didn't even necessarily need to know that much of how to play it. You could kind of just know like that power chord shape or something, and you could bang out a lot of songs.
Right.
I thought this is really cool. Like I don't need to really learn guitar. I just need to learn how to write a riff. and that was kind of that was like this huge revelation to me, and I was so sick of carrying drums around that I thought I'll carry a 412 cabinet around instead.
Right.
You kind of see like the flaw in my high school aged logic there, but
Yeah.
but all the same, it was like I'm gonna learn to play guitar. So I took some guitar lessons, um, which kind of counted towards my high school education, and I ended up graduating early, which was nice. But um, I never really practiced as much as I should have, and never really got super great at it. But all the same, I became an adult and I moved and met up with people and said, "Yeah, I play drums and guitar." And they'd be like, "Well, I want to start a band. How about you play drums?" And so sometimes I'd play drums, and other times they said, "Well, I like the way you play guitar. Why don't you play guitar instead?" And I would do either or. And then I ended up in a band, the only band that ever really kind of played shows and really did much of anything, of all the little various groupings that I've been involved with. But there was only one of them that was ever like a band that did a lot, and I played guitar in that band, kind of a mixture of rhythm and lead. So it was kind of this post-rock metal thing, and I really enjoyed it a lot, and kind of just became super duper obsessed with guitars and became a total gearhead. Um, uh, Pedals was always like a huge thing for me. I'm a total slut when it comes to pedals.
Mm.
Um, I love tube amps, and I just love guitars. I got really into like the history of them. I got really into taking them apart and putting them back together. Um, and then at some point in time, I moved away from where the band had been to a different city, and this was actually when I moved up to Portland for a while.
Oh, okay.
And that basically was what broke up the band. But while I was up in Portland, I had quit going to college because I thought I was just going to be a musician for a living. So I'd quit going to college, and I thought, like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I have no career. I have there's just nothing I'm doing with my life besides wishing I was a famous guitar player in a hugely popular band, uh, and and I have a day job, like so, it wasn't what I wanted, so I needed a career, and I found a book at Powell's Books, and it was I think it's called How to Make an Electric Guitar by Dennis Waring. I probably have that name wrong, so apologies to him, but um, I bought that book, and I bought a router, and I bought files, and I just kind of started practicing. I just kind of started going at it. And it was pretty quick that like I was kind of hooked on this idea of being a guitar maker, and I just kept doing it, and decided that this was how I was going to make a living this someday. This is going to be my career. I was so obsessed with guitars, like what can I do for a career that's going to involve guitars? And it ended up being guitar making.
That's awesome. Did did you work with anybody up in this neck of the woods? I think you mentioned before that like you kind of hung around Sal Cole's shop a little bit and things like that.
Yeah.
Was that a big help to you early on, or were you just kind of there nerding out? Like how did that all come about for you?
Yeah, it definitely helped me out. I think that where I ended up living in Southwest Portland was only like a mile away from Saul Cole's shop, and even way before I even moved to Portland, I was aware of him. Um, he was probably the first sort of high-end boutique guitar maker that I even knew existed, and I was just a huge fan of his work. Before I didn't even know he was in Portland, and then somehow I'm up there and I start building guitars, and I'm just looking at his stuff, admiring it, and I realize, hey, this guy's in Portland. I should ask him if I can meet him and see his shop. And he says, and he was completely gracious. He's absolutely one of the nicest people on the planet, and he just said, "Sure, come on down. I'm in Southwest Portland," and that's when I realized, like, oh my God, I'm like a mile from his shop. So, yeah, I used to go down there and just kind of glean off all the information that I could and show him whatever I was working on and check out whatever he was working on and just hang out. But yeah, I got to know some of the other guitar makers up there, like David King, who is an incredible, he makes basses primarily, and that guy's one of the most knowledgeable people I know. Mark Roberts, who primarily makes ukuleles and is an absolute sweetheart. And he did started doing this thing where it was a luthier's lunch, people, anybody that was kind of into guitar making or craftsman of a musical instrument of any kind sort of would get invited, and we would all just have lunch together. And so I ended up meeting like Mike Doolin and Matt Proctor and um, God, like all these guys. I can't even uh, list them all. So many guys that I met and just had lunch with them, and this because the scene up there was just super great for that.
Yeah, it seems to be that way with just kind of guitar gear in general up here for some reason. There's just a pocket of very, effects and amps builders and everything. Just like, and yeah, lots of guitar builders, lots, just, I don't know, it's highly concentrated in this neck of the woods for whatever reason. Um,
It is. It's bizarre, and it's got to be pretty cool being there now. Because I remember, like, right before I moved was when the Pro Guitar Shop sort of showroom that they have up there. Uh, it had sort of just opened right before I moved
oh,
away
okay.
from Portland,
Yeah.
and it was then that I realized that all of these great pedal companies were in town, like Cattle and Bread and Mr. Black, and there's probably many, many others that I'm forgetting about. But there's all these pedal companies up there, and then now you've got I know Chris Benson, of course, is this amazing amp guy, and I don't know about other amp builders up there, but there's a lot of guitar builders, and yeah, it's just this sort of hot seat for all that stuff, and it's just incredible. It's so cool. I do miss Portland, and I think someday I'd like to. I might go back. I'm kind of in Sacramento now, just because this is where my career has taken me,
Right.
and I've got this shop set up here that is it's a good shop setup, and I would have to kind of start fresh if I was going to leave here, and that's just a difficult thing to do. So yeah, so I'm kind of here for now, but long-term plan of things, I could definitely see myself maybe someday going back to Portland.
Oh, well, we'd love to have you back up here. It just, well,
Aww.
come on. It just feels like I didn't know what it was, but I was in Pro Guitar Shop one day and I just felt like a piece of me left. I just didn't know what it was until now, and now I know.
Yeah, yeah, my guitars aren't there. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
and
There's
then
something missing
yeah,
from Pro Guitar Shop.
yeah, their showroom up here. I don't know if you know that it actually closed. They closed their showroom here
Oh,
about probably a year ago. They shut down
interesting.
the showroom, and I always kind of wondered, I mean, just thinking out loud, like they were right in the Pearl down there. Like that's got to be an expensive spot, you know.
Yeah,
And I don't
yeah,
know. I loved their showroom. I bought lots of stuff from them and bought, my dad a Telecaster down there. That was one of my kind of go-to spots, but I was
yeah.
very sad to see that one go. But when I talked to him, I called somebody out at their warehouse when it closed because it was like, what happened? There was always so many people in there, or so it seemed, and
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, it was pretty busy, but we were only getting like 5% of our sales from there, so it wasn't worth it,
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
So it makes sense.
I remember looking for guitar shops, and I had this friend, and we kind of were trying to sort of tour all the guitar shops in Portland. And we heard about Pro Guitar Shop and actually went into their facility before they ever opened the showroom and before they started doing all the YouTube videos that sort of got them famous.
Right.
Um, it was just way out in this warehouse, and they had this front office that was teeny tiny. It was just a little 10 by 10 room or something like that. And yeah, it's kind of crazy to think back about what I saw there and what they've become because it's very different. Um, but yeah, it's interesting the whole arc of that place.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, I'm I gotta kind of give them some credit where that, their videos and stuff is kind of what like really sparked like, oh, what is all this? Like, I've
Yeah,
been missing some stuff and I didn't know I was missing it. And so, yeah, it was
yeah.
that was one of the couple sparks that kind of ignited. Well, I guess my wife probably wishes I hadn't seen those videos, but so it goes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, I was one of those guys that was on forums and stuff for a long time before I started my career, and so some of the stuff that uh, Pro Guitar Shop sort of brought to the masses, some of that stuff I was already aware of, um, because I was just into that sort of stuff, small, boutique brands, and I'd be like, oh, I want to find an envelope filter. Who makes the coolest envelope filter? And people would be like, Subdecay, or something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, oh, what the heck is Subdecay? And I would go check it out, and bought all kinds of weirdo, obscure pedals before the pedal industry exploded to what it is today.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any well, I guess this would be a good segue into what your kind of current rig is looking like. I know you've been doing a lot of drumming lately, but as
Mm,
far as the guitar setup,
yeah.
like what are you looking at these days?
Well, I don't really have like a set rig or um, a Paul's guitar setup, because in my current band situation, I'm playing drums, but it's kind of hilarious because the other guys that I'm playing with uh, didn't have as good of amps as I do.
Okay.
So, so or guitars or pedals for that matter. So the entire band, which is currently two guitars and a drummer, the entire band is playing gear that's owned by me.
Oh, well, isn't that convenient?
The whole band. So if you want to talk about those rigs, I can tell you a little bit. I have two amps, um, and it's funny because they're kind of, in a way, they're kind of the same amp. It's sort of my thing, but they're made by two different companies and sound completely different. Um, the first one is a Satellite Amplifiers
Mm.
Barracuda,
Oh man.
which is, yeah, it's amazing. I love the Satellite stuff because it's so simple. Just it's got the two inputs and a volume and a tone knob, and whatever you plug into it, you just hear whatever you're plugged into. It's like the tone is so sort of transparent,
Yes.
um,
I
and
really want
just
one. Really bad.
huge. Oh, they're just so great. Like I've been in love with satellite amplifiers for the last 4 years. When I first heard about them, when I first moved into the shop that I'm in now, with Doug Cower, who introduced me to satellite, and I've just been head over heels in love with them ever since. The bass, like the regular model Barracuda, is based around the KT66, which is a really cool tube. But I wanted to see if he could do one for me with six CA7s
Oh, okay.
because I've always just really liked six CA7s. And so he sort of prototyped it first with some EL34s and said, yes, this sounds good. This sounds exactly like the regular model Barracuda, only a little bit more aggressive. And I was like, oh, that sounds like something I'd like.
Mm-hmm.
And then and he shipped me mine with some 6CA7s in it and a 112 cab with a Celestian creamback. And yeah, it sounds incredible. I love it to death. And then my other amp is a really obscure thing right now because the guy that made it is in Australia and he's kind of just getting his amp company going.
Oh, okay.
But it's Lance Amps, Lance. So his name's James Lance, and he's down in Australia. I forget which city. I think it's Melbourne. And yeah, it's kind of similar because it's about that 40-45 watts sort of range into two 6CA7s.
Oh, okay.
So kind of similar, but this one has high low gain inputs, and it has a number, and it has individual uh, gain knobs for each of those with a master volume and a tone knob. So it's got a little bit of extra control to it, and it's just kind of a gain machine. Like it can do a clean tone, but it's made because I told him I wanted something that could sound heavy and aggressive and it does that in spades. Like this thing has more gain on tap than any amp I've ever heard. It just face melter, you know. It's got that going for it, which is really cool.
Nice.
And I've got that plugged into an old Mitchell 212 cab with two Celestion G12H100s, the good ones, from what I hear, from what I understand.
The old school ones when they were still made in across the pond. Well, not in China.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's the amp situation. For guitars, I've got a couple of guitars, and the guys in my band play my guitars. Not my guitars that I made, but just guitars that are in my personal collection. Um, because I don't have any of my own guitars hanging around for them to play.
What?
Yeah, that's part of my plan for this year. Is like I'm gonna build myself some guitars so that I can have them around the shop, and when people want to come check out what I do, I can hand them something that I've made. But I've tried doing that in the past, but I always ended up selling it. Somebody was like, I gotta have that guitar, that's mine, and I sold it. So currently I have none of my own guitars.
This sounds very like I'm pretty sure I just heard the exact same story from Casey over at Veritas. He's like, hey, come by and check out the shop. We're expanding it. I'm like, okay.
Oh.
And so I went over there. I was like, man, I've heard a lot about your guitars. Let me lay my hands on one of them bad boys. He's like,
Yeah.
I don't have any. And then he basically told me that exact same story. He did have one there, but it wasn't set up, and it was kind of like, I'm not sure exactly what the situation with that guitar was, but it wasn't a finished product by any stretch of the imagination. So it was like, I was like, this is like deja vu right now. This is exactly what he just told me.
Yeah, and it seems to be pretty common amongst us guitar maker guys. Like it's pretty rare that 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 you have something that you finish and it sticks around for a while. If you're I guess I don't know what the deal is, but yeah, it's like I finish something and it goes out the door pretty quick, which is not a problem, not a bad problem to have.
Well, you are kind of in the business
that means stuff selling, but
of selling. Yeah, I was gonna say selling guitars.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make you any money to have them sitting there looking at you. So it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, but so I don't have any of my own guitars for my bandmates to play, but I have some of my personal guitars. I have a 1964 Supro White Holiday, which is a Valco made in Chicago guitar that's with a fiberglass body, single bridge pickup. The sort of it looks like a humbucker, but it's a single coil.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Sort of a thing. Yeah. And I love those old guitars, like that whole era, all those Valco guitars that came out in the late 50s, early 60s. Those are some of my favorite guitars of all time. The fiberglass bodied guitars and even some of the wood bodied models. I just, that's just my jam right there. Those things are so great.
That seems to poke through in some of your designs. I'm definitely can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of what I came up with for my original models was, I wanted to do tributes, I guess. Not tributes, but I wanted to take some of those influence. So certainly like the Oceana is kind of an amalgamation of like all my favorite guitars. Like it's a little bit Les Paul, it's a little bit Jazzmaster, but it's a lot Supro.
It's a lot beautiful. That's what it is. I love it.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm not just saying that. That's why that guitar is why I needed to get you on the show, because that's how I found out about you first. It's like, what is that? Oh, okay, this is sweet. So I'm not just blowing smoke. I really do think that's a gorgeous guitar.
No, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
That's the guitar that is kind of my heart and soul, my pride and joy. I mean, that's the guitar that it's the flagship of my company. And if I only built one guitar for the entire rest of my life, it would be the Oceana, and I would do it happily because that's what I do. That's what I've created. It's kind of my child in that sense, or for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
You know, I like all of my other guitar designs. You know, I love them. I really do. I think that some of the other guitars that I've got do different things and have different looks and kind of are maybe somewhat better suited for other purposes and things. But the Oceana to me is kind of it's the be all to end all, you know, in a way. It just makes me really happy when other people like it because I like it, and you
Right.
know, I designed it as like my dream guitar. So for anybody else to say, "Well, that's beautiful. That's a nice guitar," you know, that makes me really feel really good.
Well, just we're all about spreading the good feels. So, if you anybody listening hasn't checked out an Oceana, either get on the website, the link will be in the show notes, or check it out on Instagram. Just go look at it and feast your eyes. I've posted it a couple once or twice. I can't remember, but just
Yeah.
go look at an Oceana and just smile. Just do it. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
interrupted. I'm gonna interrupt you a couple times, but we were talking about your bandmates' guitars.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so they're one
Oh
guy's
yeah,
playing a
so
Supro, and the other guy is playing a.
the other guy is playing. I just recently got a 1975 Gibson L6S,
Oh yes,
um,
nice.
which I got because I'd kind of always been obsessed with those guitars. I always thought they were super cool, and then I kind of forgot about them for a long time, and then I checked out the band True Widow, and I was like, this is one of my favorite bands in the entire world, and I was checking out his gear, and I realized he pretty much exclusively plays Gibson L6Ss. So it kind of reignited this like, you know, desire for one of these guitars that I've had for a long time. And so I was just scouring Craigslist trying to find like a beat to shit one that, you know, I could uh that I could make my own for a pretty low price, you
Yeah,
know. And yeah, so I found a pretty good deal on one, you know. I paid less for it than what I think it's probably worth, and yeah, that's the other guitar that the other guitar player in my band is using. That's my guitar, but it's nicer than his guitar. So, so that's what we
so
do.
did you do any end up doing
Yeah.
anything to it? Did you change anything on it, or is it just how as it was?
Not yet. When I bought it, it had the bridge pickup had been swapped out for like some piece of junk DiMarzio thing. And so I just went and I found an original Bill Lawrence super humbucker to put in there.
Nice,
That was, you know, just to sort of return it to stock. And yeah, I stuck that thing in there, and that's it. That's all I've done.
cool.
So it's kind of pretty much all stock in that sense. I mean, I guess you could say it's all stock. Um, it's original in that regard, I guess.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty cool.
So is that all those guys are playing? Do they swap out anything in between when you guys are jamming, or is that they just pretty much stick to those two guitars?
I think we're just sticking to those two guitars and, until I can finish, you know, making an Oceana for myself. In which, when that happens, you know, one of them will be playing that, and then I'll finish something else, hopefully.
Right.
And I'll have the other guy play it.
Nice.
Make my band play my guitars.
It's like free promotion every time you play out. Check these things out. There they go.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, yeah. All right. Kind of terrible at promotion otherwise, so what else am I going to do?
So are that you? I know that you are a pedalhead, as you've mentioned many times on your
Yeah,
podcast. So let's talk about that.
absolutely.
Are your guys rocking any? What are the kind of what's on their boards?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so the pedal setups are not set in stone right now because when we have band practice, I can basically just pull out my box of pedals, which is about 43 pedals.
Mm-hmm.
That's about what I'm at right now, with many more to come. But that's about how many pedals I have right now. And so it's kind of just fun playtime in a way with band practice because they can kind of they go through my box and they say, oh, today I'm going to plug into this one and the Earthquaker Talons and the Dwarfcraft Fuzz, and then tomorrow I'm going to plug into the you know, Earthquaker Disaster Transport and the Moog Drive or something. You know, I mean, you just pick they just pick whatever they want to pick that day, and it becomes this sort of fluid thing. But I think they're sort of looking for sounds that they like, and I mean, I'm just the drummer. I'm just standing there going, "When do I get to hit things?" Um, and they're playing with whatever fun boxes they can kind of find that day.
Nice.
For me personally, I mean, with 43 pedals, it's like I can't. It's hard to pick a favorite or to say that I like anything. I don't have like a sort of a set pedal board of pedals that are definitely like if I was a guitar player in a band and I was going to go play a show, I have no idea what I would be plugging into. But there's definitely like a lot of those pedals that I just love so much, and I know some of them I think would probably be pretty hot contenders for that esteemed position.
Nice. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I'm somewhere in that neighborhood too, but I honestly don't know. Yeah, I'm somewhere in that neighborhood too, pedal wise, and
Yeah,
yeah, my board got ripped apart when we were going into the studio to record in March, and just because we just said everybody bring all of your gear, and
yeah.
as each song requires, we'll swap out each other's gear or whatever, and so we had a pedal corner in the studio that was just I don't even know how many pedals were there between all three
This
guitar
is like the
players.
candy store over there
Oh,
in the
it
corner.
was beautiful. It was so
Yeah,
glorious. But we would just go over there and
that's
like
awesome.
sample. A lot of times we set up each other's tone. We said, okay, what
Cool.
are you
That's fun.
using on this? What guitar are you using? What amp are you plugging into? And they would pick from whatever that was there, and
Yeah.
and then we would actually dial in each other's sounds. We was like,
Hmm.
come in here. I need a tone consultation, and then somebody'd run in there and oh yeah, you're way too scooped on with this fuzz. You're gonna need to swap out for like this one over here, like this. You tried the velvet fuzz on this or whatever. It was quite fun. That was a fun
Yeah.
part of the process. But yeah, where I was going with that is my pedal board has not been reassembled since then, and I keep
Ah, I see.
keep getting more pedals, and I'm actually in the process of converting an old gun cabinet into a pedal cabinet to store all of them because they were
Hmm.
literally laying all over the house. My wife would be like,
Yeah.
"There's a reverb in the bathroom. Get it out of there." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot I was looking at the guts of the afterneath or whatever." Just like yeah. So they need a home.
Yeah.
They're all throughout the house and all throughout my studio. They're yeah. It's bad. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I can totally relate to
I
that.
hear you. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I have a sort of a long-term plan of building multiple pedal boards for kind of different sort of musically conceptual ideas that I have.
Right.
And I don't think that there will ever be anything permanent, but I think that, I'll probably have to develop a couple of different pedal boards for different things, and eventually someday get back into a band situation where I'm actually playing guitar. Um, just because I definitely would like to do that. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm totally cool with just letting my bandmates play with my gear, and I just get to listen to the cool sounds.
Nice. What I have something I don't know. What style of music is your current band, or is it kind of all over the place? What are you guys rocking?
Oh well, it's kind of a thing that we don't really even know yet. My current band is uh, it's not really like my band. I'm in it because I'm probably one of the only drummers they know, kind of a situation.
Okay,
And
yeah,
so it's kind of their music. I'm kind of just telling them, you guys just play what you want to play and just tell me what you want me to play, because it's kind of their project.
got it.
And I'm just kind of using it as an excuse to play drums because it's fun and get my chops back up, because it's been a long time since I've been in a band. And so yeah, it's we really don't have like a set sort of idea or clue of what we're doing yet. It Yeah, we were even just at the last band practice. We've kind of been writing songs with this sort of intention of there someday being a vocalist singing on parts of these songs. And then we realized that we don't have a PA, and it might be a pretty long time before we have a vocalist. so maybe we should just try to be an instrumental band for a while. So it's kind of, it's kind of up in the air for that sort of thing, but we're kind of going back to basics of just how do we play together? How do we gel and uh, just play music that's not terrible? How do we, sort of let's all just focus on practicing a lot and bringing our musicianship up so that we can keep things interesting and that sort of a thing. So yeah, it'll be a long time, I think, before we play any gigs or do any recordings or anything like that. But it's just fun. I mean, I'm just in it because I missed being in a band, and these guys came to me and asked if I wanted to do it. I'm the only one that knows how to play drums, so I was like, "Oh, I'll just be the drummer. I'm cool with that. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's make it happen."
Nice. Good times.
I think that like I think that like if I were to form a band of my own, though, that would be a different situation. I would want to play guitar, and stylistically, it's hard to say exactly what it would be because as a musician, as a guitar player, I'm not really like a songwriter. I can't. I don't really come up with words. I don't come up with melodies that are sufficient enough to carry a song, to carry a band. But I'm kind of a good like team player. So if there's other guys that are doing interesting things on guitar, drums, and bass or whatever, I can be in this situation and I can kind of say, oh, well, this part of the song is kind of lacking a little bit in the vibe that it's trying to go for. It's sort of maybe the song is going for this certain sound, and I'm feeling like it's not quite there yet. Like I'm good at identifying that and saying, well, okay, but if I can add like a few notes here with kind of a clean tone and maybe a little bit of delay or something like that, that'll really work out. And I'm good at that. Or even just saying this song is really busy right now. It makes sense for me not to play, or it makes sense for me to just drone on something.
Right.
Like I'm a good like team player with the guitar. So um, so I don't really know exactly what kind of music I would play because the kind of music that I listen to that I would probably want to play would be a little bit more complicated than what sort of naturally flows out of me. Like the music that naturally flows out of me, if I just sit down and I try to write something, sounds like Mazzy Star or Trespassers William or these just like really slow, melodic, ethereal, just gorgeous kind of pretty songs.
Right.
Whereas what I would probably want to play would be more along the lines of something like a Russian Circles or
Oh.
Pelican or Marriages or something a little just that just rocks a little that rocks a lot more
Yeah.
than you know what I mean. Like I want to learn. That's like a kind of a musical style that I try to do, and it doesn't exactly flow naturally out of me, but that's what interests me, and the vast majority of the music that I listen to, um, like if I named my highlight records for the last like year or whatever, it would be like True Widow, King Woman, War Paint. The new Failure record that came out this year was just astoundingly good. I think that's probably my record of the year.
I've heard a lot about that. I haven't listened to it yet. I'm gonna have to scope that out.
Dude, it's so good. It's called The Heart is a Monster, and it's like I was like always a huge Failure fan, and then I heard they were getting back together and putting out a new album, and I was stoked. But they completely exceeded all of my expectations with this record. It's so good. And I also just listened to the new Battles record, which is like blowing my mind right now. Like that's been on repeat for me. Like I listen to my podcasts and exhaust the heck out of those, and then I put that Battles record on and just listen to it on repeat because it's so good.
Just go. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'll put those two on the list. I'm not familiar with them, so it sounds
Yeah.
like about time to get familiar.
Yeah, it is. I've listened to episodes of your podcast and some of the stuff that you listen to, and I think you and I are somewhat like-minded in some of our tastes. I think you'd probably dig it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm very all over the place, but um, yeah, I think people pretty much know where I sit these days. Uh,
Yeah.
somewhere in between like um a hardcore kid and like a traditional country person, which is a very strange place to sit, but that's
Well, there you go.
it, and then like you say, when you were talking about what you listen to and what you want to do versus what actually comes out, I can totally relate to that because the last album that I did with my band, um, I wrote, uh, I don't know, 30% of the songs. I come up with the basis
Yeah.
of them. We all do things together, but usually one guy writes the whole melody and basic chord progression, and then everyone else adds their secret sauce on top of it, and that's kind of how our process has been. And so yeah, even the songs that I directly wrote, they don't sound like what I would listen to normally. It's odd.
Yeah.
I, it's weird how
Yeah.
that comes across. I don't know how that happened, but it did.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's one of those great mysteries of my life, and it sounds like maybe yours too. I mean, sometimes what just sort of emanates from you, whether you consciously do it or not. So what comes out is just a certain thing, and then maybe what's in your head is a different thing. So yeah,
And I don't know if you've experienced this too, but when I try to force something, like I want to write an X style of song, and I try to
right.
forcefully do that, usually I'll hammer it and hammer it and hammer it, and then I'll step back and like listen to the quick demo and go, that sounds like garbage. Like what did it? That sounds
Yeah.
like I'm really trying hard. And
Uh-huh.
I've always experienced like when it just kind of comes out, even if it's not
Yeah.
what I would normally go for, it's like, oh yeah, that I could have people
Uh-huh.
listen to that, and I'm not embarrassed about it. So
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly like that. I mean, I've had I suppose I probably had a few moments where, I was trying to do a specific thing that was sort of outside of the my comfort zone with what I play, and there's been times where it worked out, but for the most part, yeah, if I just relax and I just let the music kind of happen as it happens, um, it's more genuine and it feels more real, versus just really trying to say, okay, I'm gonna this song is gonna just be the heaviest thing I've ever written, and then it just ends up sounding like chug chug chug, and
right,
it's just
yeah,
bad. It's just bad, and it feels forced, and it doesn't feel natural. Like authenticity is so important, and it's so like every little bit of everything we do, like authenticity is such a huge part of that, that anytime you try to sort of go outside of that, it mush.
yeah. Well, I mean that applies when you're talking about music, or when you're talking about gear, because like you see
Yeah.
these companies that were disingenuous with their products, and
Uh-huh.
not very many of them survive that. They
No.
usually end up collapsing because of that. I mean, because people want something real. They don't, if you're making a Big Muff clone, tell everybody that you're making a Big Muff clone and that with your take on it. Don't be
Yeah.
like, this is my secret sauce fuzz, because that'll get you by for a
Right.
while. But
Right.
eventually you get found out. It's just, I mean, people aren't stupid.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
think,
Well, and it's just that matter of sort of having respect for uh, whoever you're trying to appeal to, whoever your customer base is, if you're making a product, or whoever your fan base is, if you're a musician, like the people that are listening to you, the people that care about what you do, that you want to care about you, you have to have a level of respect for them to say, I'm not going to give you, second rate uh, copies. I'm not going to give you something that I just ripped off from somebody else. Like, I'm not going to give you that. You deserve more than that. Like you for a musician, it's like, I'm going to give you original music. I'm going to try to do something different. I'm going to go into the studio and I'm going to plug into a stupid amount of pedals because I want to give you a new sound. Like, I want to blow your mind. or if you're making a product, say I want to blow your mind with this product. For me as a guitar maker, it's I want to blow your mind with a guitar that you've never seen before. I want to do something cool and unique and different. Because it's like I have respect for anybody willing to pay me any amount of attention. You know.
Well, that was big. I liked that. I really
No, thanks.
I really liked that. That was a good spiel. I that
Yeah.
was
It's well, and it's like you and me with podcasting. We could just get on our podcast and we could just ramble on about whatever's on our mind that day, and we could put it out there. It's so easy to just put something out there these days. But do you have like you clearly have respect for the people that are listening to your podcast because you're trying to get interesting people on there. I'm not saying like I'm so interesting, but I've been listening to your podcast because you're getting, Chris Benson on there and all that you told me a couple of people you got coming up, and I'm excited to listen to the episodes that you've got coming out soon.
well, and
Because you're,
it's that thing. I get people who I'm interested in. So if I'm interested, most likely somebody that's following my Instagram feed, which is kind of the majority of my current audience,
mm-hmm.
is probably going to be interested in them too. So I'm here to do stuff for you guys, listeners. I want you guys to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if it's garbage, I would like you to tell me before you stop listening.
Yeah,
I'll try to
of
fix it.
course. Well, and that's another really good point is because also, if you're creating a product, um, what was I going to say? You're out there to put out a good thing, and I totally lost what I was going to say. I had this really great point lined up. Okay, never mind.
Well, I'm sure I agreed with it because you haven't said anything I disagreed with yet. But but yeah. Oh man. Well, thank you for listening, and thank for anybody else that's listening because this is really new for me, and I'm still kind of trying to float my way through it. It's something I've wanted to do for several years and just kind of recently pulled the trigger. And I hope everybody's enjoying it, and I really appreciate anybody giving it a listen because I'm just a gearhead like everybody else, and enjoy talking to everybody about gear and talking to guys like you that are passionate about what it is you do. And it all kind of stems back to the music. If it doesn't help the music, then it's all kind of pointless, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I agree. I have a lot of respect for anybody that's out there trying to do something new and interesting and really, enhance music. I think that's probably why I have such a huge interest in so many pedal companies is they're trying to make these cool, crazy new sounds with what they do. And some of the guitar companies are the same, and I try to be one of those guys, like not just rehash all the old stuff that's already been done before, do something new and something cool.
And that takes a pretty big, some guts, because there was a guy who was talking to the other day about he had some ideas for different guitar designs and things. He's like, oh, it's just so nerve-wracking to put out anything that's not classic because you don't know that people are gonna like it. And it's like, I totally get that. And then the process of building a quality instrument. And then it's polarizing, which is, I guess all the best stuff is polarizing. If everybody likes it, it's probably kind of bleh. But I can understand how that would be really nerve-wracking to try to do as a builder. That would be intense.
Well, actually, yeah, that reminds me of the point I was going to make just a short while ago and then forgot. But you said something about how if you're interested in something, you know that other people are going to be interested in it. And I think that that's a good point, and that kind of is really something that that I've had to remember myself. Is that if I like it, if it's something that I think is really cool, there's a pretty good chance that other people are going to think it's really cool too.
Right. Maybe not everyone, but but other people.
Going to be for everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's bound to be somebody.
That is a good point. I'm glad you remembered that point. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. I try.
You try to make good points.
And remember things. I'm pretty bad at it.
Oh man.
preaching to the choir on that one. I couldn't even remember if I emailed you today or not. But anyway, yeah, good times. Well,
Yeah.
Paul, we are we're since you listen to the podcast, you know how this goes. We are
Yep.
right at that hour mark, and everyone's already at home. They're asleep. They're done listening.
Yeah.
They've given up.
Yeah, the commute is over.
Yes, the commute is over, and thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome talking to you, like I was pretty confident it was going to be. So, do you have any kind of closing things you'd like to say, or places you'd like to direct people to? I'm going to be putting your website in the show notes, so if there's anything else you'd like to say, this would be a good time.
Oh, well, just thanks for having me, I really appreciate it. It's nice to be able to be on this side of the microphone, so to speak, and talk a little bit about what I do. So yeah, I just appreciate everybody listening. I hope they check out my guitars. I really hope that people get a chance to play them, because I'm proud of what I do. I think that I make a pretty good guitar, and I hope that everybody gets a chance to check one out in person someday.
Ooh, I hope that I can when you come back up to Portland, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, and for anybody that might happen to be swinging through Sacramento, shoot me a message on Instagram, shoot me an email, call me up on the phone. Like I'm not terribly active on social media. It's just something that I'm not very good at it. I'm just a bit of a Luddite, I guess. I kind of prefer real human interaction.
Weird.
I guess.
That's so strange.
Yeah, go figure, right? But yeah, I mean, call me up on the phone. Like I'm happy to talk about my guitars to anybody that wants to listen all day long. So, if you're ever in Sacramento and you want to swing by the shop and check out what I do, yeah, just call me up, shoot me an email. Like I'm around, I'm available, and I'd love to show off my stuff, and I just really hope that everybody gets a chance to check it out.
Right on, man. Well, I hope that I can get myself down there and check it out. I'll try not to wait till you maybe make the pilgrimage back to our lovely little green city.
Yeah, try not to wait.
Yeah.
Maybe are you doing NAMM? Are you going to be at NAMM?
I am not going to be at Winter NAMM. I want to be. The old day job still holding me down.
Right.
But
right.
my goal.
Well, we'll work on that.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah.
But the goal for me right now is to be at Summer NAMM next year.
Cool.
That's my
right.
my hope if I can do that, and then obviously winter also. But
right.
Anyway, all right. Well, thanks, Paul.
Sweet, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For Paul Rhoney, I'm Blake Weiland, and as per usual, good luck and good tones. See you guys later.
Boop.
One last thing before we totally sign off here, I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.